There was an interview yesterday. It was right over here, and it was Jimmy Dore interviewing Cornel West. So, CheeseSlice, why don't you jump in right away, really quick, and give
All
us
right.
your opinion. Give me your opinion right off the
Ooh.
bat of what you thought. At the end of the day, I'm just going to say this really quickly. It was a disappointment. It really was. I was disappointed when we interviewed Cornel West. I thought we were giving him a lot of answers. In other words, if he wanted to reach the people he said he wanted to reach, if he wanted to be serious about his campaign, if you're running for president of these United States of America, which once again, I don't even believe in the election system at all. But if you're going to get your message to grow and you're going to get people to come along and start a movement, you got to be able to reach across the board. And I feel at the end of the day, Dr. Cornel West shows he has very little, if not zero, populist message. Your thoughts?
I'll agree with you on that. When I was watching it, my initial feeling was, this is bad. It didn't seem to go well. And actually, I was on during part of it. I was on the verge of tears, just out of just sheer disappointment, thinking how, we need a leader to kind of pull us away from this edge. That the country's just, the government anyway, is marching to the right. It is nonstop. And if we could get some leader at the top that could just start pulling us away from there, and Cornel West is a guy who could do it. And watching that interview, it told me that he's not prepared to run a political campaign. I think one of the things about him that makes him so likable is that he's not a politician; he's an academic.
Yeah.
And he's brilliant. And one of the reasons I believe a lot of the things I believe now are because of guys like Cornel West and Cornel West himself. So I have a lot of admiration for the man. But then after the interview, I was thinking, this isn't the disaster it appeared to be on the surface. I mean, this could be the wake-up call that the campaign really needed, because everybody's talking about it. We're talking about it. All the shows that we're sort of affiliated with, they're talking about it. But then you've got people who really have the ear of Cornel West. They're definitely reviewing this interview, and they're going to talk about it. And then they're going to talk about it directly to Cornel West, because there's a few things that Cornel's just not getting. He is running a political campaign, and he has to sell himself to people why they should vote for him over voting for anybody else. Yeah. And if he's telling people that one guy is way worse than the other guy, and everybody knows that he's number 3 and a very distant number 3, and that if we got to beat the one guy who's way worse than the other guy, then the people who might want to vote for Cornel West are going to say, well, I can't vote for him, because if one guy is worse than the other, then I got to vote for the guy who's least bad.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you can't do that. If you're going to go out there and say Trump's a neo-fascist, you have to also then point out exactly all the ways that Joe Biden's a fascist too. And then say, if you want to vote against fascism, the only way to do that is to vote for me. Because if you're voting red or blue, you're voting for fascism. Yeah. Whether you're voting for the open fascism of Donald Trump, where it's like you're a frog, he's going to throw you on the pot and turn it up to 11, or you're going to vote for the more mild fascism, or the low-key fascism under the Democrats, that's you're the frog in the boiling pot, and they're just going to crank up the heat slowly where you don't even notice until the point where it's too late.
Well, let me say this much.
That's what you're voting for when you vote for Republican and Democrat.
Let me say this much too as well. He's still selling the lesser of two evil bullshit, and still justifying, I think, for his mistake for voting for Joe Biden, right? And this Bernie Sanders said the other day, this creeping authoritarianism. They're acting like they're in a better situation today with Biden as president, than Donald Trump. When I can't even sit down and list fucking 5 things that Biden has done well. 3 things I can't even list that's really even legitimate. He's been a disaster. We're much closer to World War III since he's got into power. The censorship has been hyped up even more.
Absolutely.
He's aided it. You know what I'm saying? And that's the worst thing you can do. That's true fascism. Our freedom of speech is so important. Still no help for Julian Assange. Not that was help from Donald Trump. You know, and that's why I can't say that Donald Trump was all about freedom of the press, because he didn't do what he needed to do for Julian Assange or Edwin Snowden. But I mean, Biden has been terrible, so he's still been making that excuse. Right. It almost felt like that he's going to drop out at one point and endorse Biden. Like, I feel like that's going to happen. I don't think he's going to run.
A lot of people get that sense, but I don't see that happening. He's not going to. Why is he going to drop out? He's running as a Green Party candidate. Yeah. So he's going to be in it till the end. If he's the candidate for the Greens, he'll be there all the way to the general.
Well, he's not the candidate for the Greens yet, right? He says
he's the front runner though. I don't know of anybody else who's going to run against him, and frankly, if anybody does, I don't think they have a shot.
Oh, there's going to be Green candidates that run against him. I'll guarantee that, because
Well, yeah, but I mean, look, name recognition is huge, and who do they got that can challenge Cornel West?
Nobody. But there's going to be people who try to run to challenge them, and it's going to be on the commission, the Green Party chair, whatever it is, there's like a not a chair, but there's like a committee that decides the rules on who can be a serious candidate and who not. So there's going to be people who are going to try to get on the debate stage with him and go after him. There are people who have split off and started other groups outside the Green Party, you know what I'm saying, in hopes to one day take it back. People who were against what the steering committee said on mandates and vaccines, people who didn't like Howie Hawkins' stand. So there's that party is a mixed bag. It's not everybody marching. It's not like a bunch of shit libs, but he definitely is matriculating towards the shit liberty, neo-progressive bullshit part of the party. And they're not giving him good advice.
But he's been working with them for years. So he's coming out of that space. And speaking up against these people he's been working with and going on their shows for years, it's going to be a little tricky for him, because he's always making friends. He's very nice to people, calls everybody brother, because he sees people as humans. He doesn't want to see us divided at all. Yeah. And these are some of his strengths, but he needs to act a little bit like Trump. He needs to come out there and start throwing haymakers and start spitting some fire and saying, look, this is what Trump did that was bad. This is what Biden's doing that's bad. Neither one of these guys is a good option. And what I can do is the opposite of what those guys are doing. You want to get things to be better, you got to go with me. And that's got to be his message.
He has been selling Biden as the lesser of two evils.
He has been. It
was almost like an infomercial for that yesterday. And I don't care. Some people saying, well, he's not leading with identity politics or whatnot. He's definitely mentioning it a lot. You know what I'm saying? He's definitely,
I've got some clips to talk about that.
And I'm glad, because even Kurt, I watched after to the Jimmy interview, and even Kurt says, like, I'd like to know what white supremacy means right now to people at this point. Right. You know what I'm saying? Because it's been changed and distorted and all that, you know what I'm saying? And of course there is white supremacy, but it's a failing tactic when you talk about, because a lot of white people feel it's like, oh, is this again? I'm the oppressor, you're the oppressed. Your oppression is my fault, when it is most directly responsible. It's responsible. The responsibility is coming from the ruling class, the elites. Those are the ones who we need to concentrate on, and then we can talk about everything else. And if you have to bring a dictionary or an explanation to your movement, you've already lost. You've already lost.
It's the elevator pitch. You can't explain it. You have like 2 minutes to get your point across and sell them on an idea, and you don't have time to go into the theory. So, but I think one problem with white supremacy is a lot of white people really don't truly understand it. Like you said, when somebody uses that term, what do they mean? Well, different people do mean different things by it. But I think there is an academic sense of the term that a lot of the people that we align with, that they totally understand it, and when they hear it, that's what they think, because that's the book. That's what the book says. But when we're talking to people that we're trying to persuade to say, get away from the Democrats and the Republicans and come with us.
Yeah.
They're not on board with this yet, and they've got a much different idea of what white supremacy is when they hear that term.
Yeah.
And for a lot of those people, it's just a turn off. As soon as
It's an immediate turn off, by the way.
You want first if they hear that first thing, they're not going to listen to another word you say.
You're done. You lost them.
And that's the problem. The problem isn't the substance of the argument when you want to talk about white supremacy. The problem is you hit a trigger word that just sent the person you're talking to away.
Yeah.
They're done.
Yeah.
And that's part of the propaganda that you've got to fight in this political battle.
Yeah.
Because the other side has done a very, very good job of taking away the language that the left likes to use. And the left gets really stuck in the academic side of the theory when it comes to socialism, communism, all that stuff. And I know there's two ways of looking at it. Like I'm leaning to the side that says, you know what, let's explain the ideas without mentioning the buzzwords, the trigger words, so we can bring people in. And there's other people say, no, we got to tell them exactly what it is that we're explaining to them, so they understand that these ideas aren't evil like they've been taught for the last 50 years.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the reason I'm not on that side is because I am one of the success stories of the people who have been persuaded from the right to the left. And I'm telling you right now, like I still get triggered when I hear the word communism being used. And even though I am way past understanding or way past the misunderstanding of communism, thinking that, oh, this is evil and horrible, and anybody who's engages in that is an awful person, they need to be expelled from society. I mean, that's the kind of sense I used to have. I come from that space. I know that's not true anymore. I'm a much more friendly towards it. I think, oh wow, the communists, they're really onto something now, and they're hitting a lot of good beats when they talk about things. But the thing is, that programming goes so deep when you're indoctrinated into the American exceptionalism that even though you logically understand the differences of things that you used to believe, when those triggers are still there, they are just very deep. So when I hear people I like and they talk about stuff, they talk about the issue, oh yeah, and that's communism, I still have get a twinge inside.
No. Somebody said to me the other day that they were like, really quickly, I don't mean to cut you off. It's like, yeah, I mean the COVID and this whole situation and communism in China. It's like, geez, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
There's no nuance to this conversation, whatnot. And we live in a capitalist society. Look what's going on. We have no freedom of speech. No, Julian Assange is jail. There's no freedom of press. There's so many things that have happened under a capitalist system. And I think people have to understand this. It's never the ism. It's those above those systems that are ruling it that can manipulate it either way, whether it be communism, socialism, capitalism. It doesn't make a difference. The
one ism that does matter that people should care about is authoritarianism.
Yeah.
Because that's what people really, really detest. But they've conflated that with communism. I mean, and especially on the right. And so it's amazing how you'll talk to somebody on the right and they will describe all the ills of capitalism and then blame it on communism. And it's just, that makes my head want to explode. It's like you identify the problem correctly, but then you're giving it the absolutely wrong label. And that's the power of the propaganda that we're going up against.
Look at this comment right here. And I want to talk about this. And Adam, thank you so much for your comment. Black people's oppression should never be pushed aside. The people who want to build a coalition need to be on board with that. What do you mean? Why do they have to be aboard with that, right? If they're going to vote for you based upon economical issues, that's all that matters right now. You want to, once again, why is it so important that people have to understand Black oppression first and then the class issue second? Shouldn't it be the other way around? The things we agree on. It's like when Bernie went to the Liberty University, right, in 2016 and talking about, we're not going to agree on abortion. We're not going to agree on this. Let's talk about the things we're going to agree on. Boom, went right into that.
That was
then
good.
You can work your way backwards to what's going on, because their issues need to be addressed. It's been too long. Okay, so that's your opinion. And guess what? And this is something I'm going to say.
Well, I'm not so sure that's wrong. You and I might disagree. You and I might disagree on that point.
Tactic, though. We know it hasn't worked. You know what I'm saying?
I know you don't lead with it.
Yes.
You definitely don't lead with it. But when you get the person, when you grasp their attention and you got them in the conversation, I think you can talk about that. But if you're going to talk about it, you still have to avoid the trigger words. That's
even
really
still,
critical and important.
Here's the thing that people don't understand. There's the ruling class and then the rest of us. That's the basic thing. They don't care about us either. That's what the people had a hard time and why they can constantly get COVID wrong, right? Because Whitey had to go. And it was white people who were the easy target in this one because historically they listen to their doctor. So they have the medical field under control. They're going to kill them first. You know what I'm saying? Right. And that's what a lot of people had a hard time getting on with it because it wasn't based on race. It was based on the human race. Less humans wanted on the planet. And that's something a lot of people have a hard time grasping. Do you have a COVID video in this one or no?
No, nothing about COVID in this one.
Let me say this then real quick. Let me say this real quick. Did you want to say something real quick?
Well, go ahead and say what you want, and then we'll jump into the tweets.
Okay. Yeah, and I have to get a drink here, so we're going to have to go full screen on the first video. But let me say this about COVID, okay? Which Dr. Cornel West shows he knows nothing about. He's like, we're going to have a truth commission. I know there's books written, but like that. Well, he didn't read that book, really, Anthony Fauci, because once again, the reason why I hold up that book is a guide to what went on. It's a playbook to what happened. It wasn't about so much, RFK's position on things. It was actually the doctors who wrote that book, the majority of that book. You know what I'm saying? It came from them, what they did. And COVID is not just about a bioweapon or about
it's not about the vaccine.
It's not even about the vaccine. It's about control. It's about people taking the government, telling you what to have to do. They're going to take away your livelihood. They're going to take away your jobs. They're going to take away your living situations if you don't listen to them and go shoot yourself up. You know what I'm saying? Well, it was about economics that were taken away. How much money did the lockdowns cost us? Ridiculous. How many deaths came from this whole situation? It's ridiculous. It's about control.
It's also about like getting control of your bank account. They want to know how much money you have and where and how you're spending it. And then if you get out of line, they want to be able to shut you off. Yeah. And this is about a big brother society. They want to impose a big brother society on all of us. And COVID was like a test plan for them. And they learned that they probably got a lot of information of what they can and can't get away with and how they can move forward the next time when there's a big disaster. And that's the important thing to take away, I think, from the COVID lockdowns and that whole situation. But they did fortunately, they got a lot of pushback. Yeah. So it wasn't quite as easy as they thought. Now, it was easy to push people into lockdowns, but to go all the way, the people did wise up.
But they've already set up things they need to, and they're track and trace, Fourth Industrial Revolution, Great Read Society, okay? And they're ready to do it again. He has no fucking clue, right? He has no concern. It's not even on his radar, the existential threats that are coming our way. He doesn't understand the central bank digital currency, what that can do, how devastating that is.
Are you sure he doesn't understand that?
Do you not remember our interview?
I do, but I don't think he's
not talking about it, Jayme.
But he's got a lot of issues to talk about. So I mean, I don't.
That's
think
a huge one. That if you're going to run,
I think so. But he's got it. He's probably got like 20 issues on his plate.
Yeah, but you're running for president of the United States, and you said you want to reach across to people who think differently. You want to go out there and get to the Trumpers. You think a strategy of saying, "Oh, you've been duped. You're following the Pied Piper. You're telling people they're wrong." And they're idiots. That's going to, once again, they're going to be turned away immediately. You got to meet them where they're at. We've talked about this before. Right. He's not meeting people where they're at. He's good for his own echo chamber and his own fucking bubble right now. Okay. And this whole thing, like, well, class is connected to
all right.
To race,
let's
right?
Hold it. Okay. Let's watch some of the clips and then we can get into this.
All right, let's jumping the gun. And just to wrap up, put a bow on the COVID stuff. He has not been talking about this. He is duped on this, and there are people out there that are one issue voters. That's how fresh the COVID is, and he's blowing it. He's fucking blowing it.
Right, but I don't think he's ignoring it. I just think it's a low priority. I think it might not even be in his top.
Then you're dead in the water. Because then you don't understand it.
And he told Jimmy Dore, he disagrees with Jimmy on that. But
you're dead in the water.
We'll find out.
Don't even run.
Yeah. All right, let's get to this first tweet here.
Go first, big one. I'm gonna go grab a drink and listen to it as you play it.
Well, this is just a tweet. I got some tweets and then I'm playing some videos.
Let's do the tweet.
So this is from Glenn Kirk, and this is a response to this is like a recap of the entire interview. He said, "Oh man, that is some hot fire being lit right there by Mr. Dore. Jimmy calling out Dr. West for being too soft on Biden's fascism and actually killing his own campaign due to it, and Dr. West calling out Jimmy for downplaying Trump's fascism and the vicious threat Trump represents." This is a thing that did happen, and this was a big point of conflict in the entire interview. So when you watch the whole interview, it was basically talking about how Dr. West should be approaching fascism in his campaign. And unfortunately, because of the time constraints, Jimmy never got to talk about all the good things on Dr. West's platform and really push what Dr. West is really good for. And I would hope that maybe Dr. West can come back and they can have that conversation. But at the end of the day, I think this conversation, talking about fascism and the approach, was actually a really, really important conversation to have. It probably should have happened like on a private phone call, but it is getting everybody talking about it, and it is creating a sense of urgency with this campaign. And I do hope that it will change things around. So
okay,
let's go.
Let me say something real quick, though. Let's talk about that real quick. He only booked 45 minutes. He booked it weeks out. No, he booked 45 minutes. He booked it weeks out. Mm-hmm. And then he was trying to run and go off to another show. Are you serious? I mean, I'm so sorry. Like, the fact that I am filling in for Jimmy Dore, it's not that I'm honored. It's that I understand what I'm doing. I've been giving a giant megaphone. Jimmy's platform is a giant megaphone. It has a lot of those independent, leaning right people there too as well. If you are serious about running and getting people who think differently than you onto your campaign, because that's what you need to go for to have a movement, you'd be on Jimmy's show every week, and Jimmy would provide that. You'd be you would stay as long as you can. That other thing I got to get to, no, that other person should have waited. Like, that's what makes me think that Cornel West is not serious. Well, you booked 45 minutes and then you're trying to get out early. Like, he was dying to get out of there. It was so.
What do we know?
Stupid.
What do we know about his campaign staff? Like, is it just him?
I don't know.
Because remember, Jimmy kept saying, whoever's advising you is not giving you a good advice. And then he says, I think for myself.
Okay.
Is he really
that's stupid himself? Too. That's dumb too as well. Let me say something about
that. I don't know, but if he's doing it himself, he's
Jayme, you have a campaign. You should have a team. Teams come together with strategies. So, that was one part where I wish Jimmy didn't back down, and he would have been like, you know what? You know what I'm talking about. If it's Chris Hedges, that's part of your team. If it's Jill Stein, that's part of your team. If it's a Jamu Baraka, who's part of your team, you guys are not on. You guys have the wrong message. The campaign itself has the wrong message. You know what I'm saying? I thought that was weak of Cornel West to say, I think for myself. You're missing the point. You are running a campaign for the United States of America to be the fucking president. Your campaign has to have a plan. You need to implement that plan, and you need to talk to people who think differently than you and bring them over. He's doing none of it. Yeah. That's why it's so fucking frustrating, because if he was the guy I thought he would be, I wouldn't even be saying that RFK is the best candidate. I'd be saying that Cornel West was the best fucking candidate, but he's not.
Well, it's still early. I think there's still time where maybe they could get on track. And that's where I'm hopeful from this interview. But let me go to this clip. This is from CJ from RBN. And I'm unfortunately the beginning of the clip was all garbled, so I had to drop it. But what he's doing is making a reply to some of the remarks that people were saying that Jimmy was rude, and he's actually defending Jimmy here. And I wanted to bring that up first.
And I personally don't think that's what Jimmy's saying. I think he's saying, as a campaign strategy, it shouldn't be, here's my 10-point plan, defund the police. You know what I mean? The 10-point plan should all be centered around economic issues is what he's saying. And of course, the people will understand that you have other ideas in other areas. But the strategy of the campaign is these economic demands right here. This is the strategy of the campaign. Now, if I'm in an interview and you ask me about reparations, yeah, I'm for reparations. Are you for trans rights? Yeah, I'm for trans rights. But is that your campaign strategy? Is what I think Jayme is alluding to, because it is absolutely ridiculous for anyone, including Jayme, to think that a person who's running for office can't talk about other issues that they believe in outside of their campaign platform. You get what I'm saying? That would be just outside of the bounds of reality, in my opinion. So that's sort of the framing I was looking at this, is that of course Jayme can't not be thinking it this ridiculous way.
So right there, CJ is saying that a lot of people are kind of acting in bad faith and saying that Jayme or trying to say that Jayme is trying to attack Cornel and take him down, and saying,
could you play that?
Cornel's wrong.
It got a little distorted for me here at the end, because I hit the cord. Can you play that last 20 seconds back of it again, really quick?
Yeah, sure thing. There we go.
Other issues that they believe in outside of their campaign platform. You get what I'm saying? That would be just outside of the bounds of reality, in my opinion.
Go halfway through. Yeah. Right there. That's good.
That your campaign strategy is what I think Jayme is alluding to, because it is absolutely ridiculous for anyone, including Jayme, to think that a person who's running for office can't talk about other issues that they believe in outside of their campaign platform. You get what I'm saying? That would be just outside of the bounds of reality, in my opinion. So that's sort of the framing I was looking at this, is that of course Jayme can't not be thinking it this ridiculous way.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So I think CJ does a good job of trying to point out to the audience that, like, Jimmy's coming at this interview in good faith, and the disagreement here is not about the substance of what Cornel wants to talk about. It's about his approach to presenting his campaign. Yeah, and I do really appreciate CJ putting it the way he did there.
Because I think those guys have gotten frustrated too a little bit with Cornel West, and they're big supporters, right? Mm-hmm. They've been frustrated the fact that he's kind of providing cover for Biden, saying he's less of a fascist, and kind of excusing that, and I think that's been a really big concern of the guys and the guys and girls, ladies, the people over at RBN, and they've expressed that. So I mean, ditto. I feel that same way. Look, that campaign strategy does have to be built around economics. Unfortunately, right, for the people who want to fight against white supremacy, they'd have to explain what that is, number one. Number two, most of the voters in America are white.
Yes, right.
I'm sorry, you got to meet them where they're at.
We're still going to get there. We're still going to get there. Okay, I've got it queued up. All right. So the next thing here is still a little bit more in defense of West, in defense of Jayme, because a lot of people think, they watch the interview and they think Jayme is just being hostile. So this was from some random person on Twitter, Julian Williams. He says, Jimmy Dore already said that he's voting for Cornel West. He just frustrated that West is going to tank his own campaign. He wants him to succeed. It's just West seems green as a politician because he's not one, which is what I said earlier. A Revolutionary Blackout Network advises West all the time on these issues as well. And this was in response to somebody saying that, accusing Jayme of being soft on RFK, but going hard against West. And I think if you watch the post-interview segment with just Jayme and Kirk talking about it, which I don't think most people will, they're just going to watch the interview, you'll get that from Jayme. He's clearly invested in Cornel West's campaign, and this emotion that comes out of Jayme is a result of him being frustrated that he's what he sees is a failure, and he does not want a failure. He wants to see massive success from this campaign. And to me, that reminds me of a sports fan who's honest about their own team when they know their team is doing bad, and everybody's yelling at them for not supporting the team, but they're like pointing out real problems with the quarterback. But everybody else thinks you hate the team just because you're criticizing the quarterback. And that's not what that's what I see is happening here when people are getting upset with Jimmy Dore. But he's on board with the campaign. He wants to see Cornel West succeed. And I think that is a very important point that needs to be stressed. And a lot of disingenuous people are attacking Jimmy, thinking he's not on board with that.
Let's talk about this for 1 second here, because people have said this, that, he went easy on RFK, the white guy, while he was really disrespectful and hard on Cornel West, the black guy. And they've said that. Let me say this much. And first of all, it has nothing to do, Jimmy's treatment with either one, it has nothing to do with race whatsoever. Okay. It's about the campaign, right? I disagree strongly with RFK running in the Democratic Party. I kind of understand why he's doing it, and I think there's benefits to it, but I don't think they're going to allow him to win, so I disagree with him there. I disagree with him on his stance on Israel-Palestine. It's terrible. I mean, I was just played a video from Norman Finkelstein the other day on my Twitter, and it's something that needs to be pointed out. You know what I'm saying? If you don't know who Norman Finkelstein is, go take a look and go find out. Go look at my Twitter. Go look at that video. I disagree with him there, but I can either take those things and I can say, for whatever reason he's doing these things, I'm not for it. I disagree with it. There's other areas in which I can get behind him, right? And I think it's very strategic for supporting him, because he has he's great on a lot of issues, including understanding the COVID from the fourth industrial revolution point of view, the captured agencies that allowed this to happen, to understand that it still hasn't gone away, that the WHO is making a treaty that's going to take away our national sovereignty and put our rights and our laws and our rules in the hands of a global governance of sorts. I mean, he understands all these things. When it comes to Cornel West, it's frustrating. It's beyond frustrating, because he feels like he's almost like not making the attempt to go out and reach and talk to people who think differently than him, to reach out to those conservatives he initially said he was going to go after, those Trump people. He's not doing what's needed to be done to build a coalition across party lines the way RFK is doing. So that's why it's so frustrating what he's doing. It's so aggravating, because even when I told him in our interview, hey man, why are you going to go call him a neoliberal and him a milquetoast neoliberal and Biden, but you could call Trump a neo-fascist? You're going to scare away those people right away. They're going to say, you think we're supporting fascism? We're not talking to you. But yet it was okay, and you made the excuse to vote for Joe Biden. Instead of coming forth and say, it was my bad, I made that excuse, and stop using that language. And we told them, why don't you just stop using that language? Stop calling them neo-fascist. You know what I'm saying? Well, I got to be true and honest and have fun with it.
That's why he's a bad politician, because he's not lying about stuff. But he doesn't have to lie.
His campaign, whether he thinks for himself, should have a plan, and somebody should be advising him, that he shouldn't be talking that way.
I don't want him to lie, but there is such a thing as lie by omission. There's just certain things you don't talk about.
Listen, it's not lying, right? Withholding information is the same as lying. People say at times, not in a campaign. Right. And CJ put it best. Lead with these other things. Meet the people where they're at. Bring them in, then talk about those things. Once you got them in there, once you understand we're all fighting for a common goal. The elites and the ruling class, the two-party duopoly, are the evil ones. Come with me. I'm going to look after you. I'm going to try to get you jobs. You know what I'm saying? Right. I'm going to understand your pains, Whitey. You know what I'm saying? And then, hey, man, when you got them inside, then you can open up dialogue for other things. But he's leading with the other stuff, or if he's not leading, he's talking about it way too much.
Well, I definitely think you can. Now, I have a clip from Sabby who kind of approaches that.
Let's do that.
As well. Well, I'm not ready. I'm not ready to get there yet.
Oh, you got stuff to say?
Oh,
you got a different clip.
I've got more clips. I got more stuff.
We're gonna call you Clippy.
I got 7 clips here.
So let's do it, baby. Let's run through these things.
We got to roll through these. All right. So the second one here. This one goes after that last tweet. So this is again CJ. He's talking about how to tailor the message. I think we've kind of hit this point home, but let's go ahead and play it
anyway. Who are we really talking about is the question. And this is something when I was looking through this in my notes, this is one of my questions. Who are we really talking about? Because are we talking about tailoring a message to make racist Trump supporters feel okay to team up with Dr. Cornel West? Because if that's what we're talking about, I'm out on that. But if we're talking about simply tailoring a message, a campaign message, let me be specific, a campaign message that's centered around economics, we can do that. That does not preclude you from talking about race as a person, if that's what you want to talk about, especially if it's affecting you.
Okay, so
did he just say that you can't, that Jimmy said, I don't know if they're talking about me too as well, because, my interview was very similar to, like, the questions are very similar to Jimmy. Obviously, all right. So he's talking about Jimmy. He, or anybody for that matter, are saying that we say you can't talk about race. Is that, or we tailoring a message to racist Trump voters? I think
that was the sticking point of his comment here, and why I clipped it, because I think that what he's trying to say there is that, he's willing to work with basically anybody, especially if we tailor a message on economic issues. But he doesn't want to work with people who are just racist Trump voters who hate him just for being black. And there's a lot of people who have that sentiment, and I think I understand it. But at the end of the day, I think I disagree with it, because I believe in the concept of united we stand, divided we fall. And if that means we gotta stand with people we find repugnant, then that's what we got to do, because it's us versus them. Like, I'm not gonna be, if I'm trying to bail out a sinking boat and we just get all the water out of here, I'm not gonna stop because some other person over there is a raging bigot. But
and here's the thing, we don't know where they're at, right? First of all, it's not like it's over a bunch of amount of them, right? Okay, I'm sure there are and stuff like that, but that's not the majority of every single Trump voter out there. That's the misrepresentation. The majority of the Trump voters were just sick and tired of the two-party system being the way it was for so long. Trump presented them a different option, somebody who was just going to break and smash the system. That's the majority of the Trump voter out there. Let's understand that. Are there racist Trump voters? Of course, too, as well. But two things. And Dr. Cornel West had this with our first interview, the Convo Couch, me and Fiorella years ago. Like, everybody's going through something. Everybody was at a different place. People can get better. People can change and stuff. Are we supposed to let the racists just, should we kill all the racists and get rid of them? Or do we try to convince them that they're wrong for being a racist? Do we show them why they shouldn't be racist? You know what I'm saying? I think people put too much stock in this whole situation where they're like, well, I'm trying to talk to the racist voter to get him over there, and we don't want him anyways. It's stupid. Like, no, because then all of a sudden you start moving the line of what is a racist, right? I mean, Chuck Modi said this to me before on an interview we had. I don't want to go and come together with a group of people who are inherently racist, and they, just because we come together on this one issue, after we're done with this one issue, they want to hurt me after. I don't even know what the fuck that means anymore. That's just an excuse, a CIA implemented fucking point of view to get people to be divisive and not work with each other. That's what that is. Okay. Mm-hmm. So you got to see that and find, you know what I'm saying? No, shut the fuck up about this thing. Nobody's trying to recruit people who are racist or whatnot. We're trying to get people together. United we stand, divided we fall, together on the common goal. The common goal is we got to get rid of the elites. We got to take care of the corruption. Mm-hmm. We got to understand it's them and the rest of us. And that's the bottom fucking line.
But how do we
with no power doesn't mean anything. A racist in power is the problem.
Right. Well, and that's the way a lot of people look at Trump. Because he was openly bigoted about a whole lot of things. Yeah. But so how do we resolve that though? Because there are a lot of people who feel exactly what CJ said there. Like if it's about tailoring a message to get racist Trump voters on our side, then I'm out. So how do we resolve that problem? Because we need to have unity, and there's a lot of people who feel exactly that way. And I don't want to dismiss CJ's feelings. I think he's right for feeling the way he does. But where do we find common ground with CJ to reconcile those feelings? And maybe we can find a way forward, or or
Dude,
what? What do we do?
Donald Trump is getting more black votes than any Republican since God knows when. 20% of the black people might vote for Donald Trump in some polls. They're saying this. I've been around. I've seen it. We saw what the people who showed up in Georgia right now. So, I mean, you're talking about Cornel West, who's supporting and defending, we got to stop the impending fascism of Donald Trump. When you talk about the First Step Back, right? Kurt mentioned it yesterday, right? The First Step Back was signed by Donald Trump, and there are people who got released from prison right away, black people right away because of that act.
Yeah, exactly.
So Biden signed the crime bill and wrote the crime bill, which put more black people behind bars than ever before, and it also took away grants and money from prisoners inside the system that were getting different degrees, welding degrees, carpentering degrees, their GEDs, all that stuff, so that when they get out, they got a fighting chance. It was taken away by Joe Biden.
Yeah,
so let's
and I think that's why
it is before we even start this bullshit argument about we're recruiting racist Trump supporters. Come on.
And I think
once again, that's just a distraction.
Well, but they're still racist. Maybe it's not Trump is the problem for here, because I do think Trump is racist, but he wasn't that racist towards black people. I think he actually.
Who is more racist, Trump or Biden?
I think Biden.
It's Biden.
When looking at Biden's history, I think it's no question.
I mean, you want to start this argument, this discussion?
But it's not about Trump. It's not the point's not about Trump. It could be anything. It could be any issue where I don't want to work with that person because they're totally racist against me.
Yeah. Well, they should look at the guy who goes and gets the Klan masters and give them their uniform, right? That guy. That's the mentality. The dude, the musician.
Yeah, the guy who talks to the Klansmen
and they give him his uniform because they're done with it.
Right. Well, the problem is now that is a great strategy. It absolutely works, but the problem with that is it's not really scalable to a large audience. We can't do that like a 1,000 people at a time. But what it does do, you convince that one white guy to stop being racist, and then he convinces all his friends to stop. So it does propagate, but it's a very slow process.
Most of the time, it's ignorance. Once you open the door and people can see the light, they understand that. But that's the thing. How do you get people to go? The easiest way to combat that is to get the people to come together on a common goal. Because when they come together on a common goal, then all of a sudden they start saying, we're working together, we're marching together, we're fighting together. And then you start having each other's back. Then you'll see those other areas in which, those people have been disenfranchised. There's no doubt in it that we have privileges, right? And those privileges are put in place so that there's division, right? Why are we fighting against the people who have the privileges rather than go after the people who dole out the privileges? Because they dole them out for division. You know what I'm saying?
That's right. But I mean, the best. So this is why I disagree with that sentiment that CJ expressed there, is because the best way to get a racist to stop being racist is to work with them and have them get to know you and realize that you're not the thing they should hate. It's the thing above us all that you should hate. So, but I do think it's just a very serious problem with unifying the left. I think that is a real attitude that a lot of people have, and I can't dismiss their feelings on that, but I don't know how to approach it and really try to find a resolution to it. And that would be a discussion I would love to have with some people who feel that way and figure out, well, how can we move forward so we can unify the left?
If a bunch of racists voted for Cornel West for whatever reason and he won the election, would you take away those votes?
I sure wouldn't. No.
Yeah.
But I know you're asking that rhetorically. So, But what I want to know is, why are all these black people now supporting Trump? Why aren't they supporting Cornel West? Why are they jumping ship from Democrats to the Republicans? And you know what? I don't even think they're going Republican. I think they're just going Trump. But how do we get them to say, hey, you don't want to go Trump, you got to go West? That's what I
talked about, but that's the issue. That's the frustration. That's what's not being sold.
Well, you're talking about that.
That's what's not being sold. That's what's being missed. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
I mean, if you're coming out of this COVID situation, right, where you've heard plenty of black people say before that, hey, man, when I walk out my house, I have a better chance. I don't want to say better chance. There's more likely the percentages are higher for me to get killed than you. My life is more at risk than yours, right? So now you have a COVID situation where a lot of people just realize that the government doesn't care about them at all, and they don't give a shit about them. Now you have a uniting message right there. Hey, man, the government doesn't give a shit about you either. They want you dead, Whitey. Right. We're all in the same boat. Now you see what we're facing every day. Now you're facing it. That right there. It's a unifying message right there to understand that the oligarchy wants you dead. They call you useless eaters. And that's the thing a lot of people can't get behind is the fact that Whitey had to go. And they just, you know what I'm saying? It was human race that they were, the human race they were going after. And it's a unifying message right fucking there. Right. He doesn't even care about it. He doesn't even know about it. He doesn't even talk about it. And the way he kind of pushed it off about, like, it's not the most pressing issue. Like, I don't think you get what's going on. Like, this wasn't about a virus and just a bioweapon. There are so many more things about it. You want to talk about a transfer of wealth, Jayme? How much wealth was transferred from out of the small businesses and pumped up top?
I know. That CARES Act was awful. It was, I mean, and then they had the PPP loans, and then they just forgave all of those. It's all the.
And a lot of people didn't get them who needed to get those PPP.
Right. And a lot of those PPP loans went to some major big corporations who have these small subsidiaries.
Yeah.
So it's like they didn't even need those loans. It was those mom and pop businesses that needed them, and they didn't get them.
I got to put this.
All right. Let's talk about
it's the Who Cares Act.
Yeah, exactly. Let's talk about. I want to go in a little bit of different direction here, where Cornel West, he's an academic, and I think this tweet here it kind of expresses where a lot of this frustration comes from. So you can see Jimmy Dore's heart get crushed as Cornel West doubles down on the DNC talking points. Man, I hope Cornel West changes, but teachers always think they are right about everything. We all know it. Just look at Jimmy's face. He was visibly upset.
Mm-hmm.
This is the problem. I think the biggest problem with Cornel West. He's an academic. He's a teacher, not a politician. And also I think it leads into this because Cornel West, he absolutely understands a lot of these issues. Well, most of the issues he talks about, he has a very good understanding, and he has a good understanding of things he doesn't really talk about. So he can talk about almost anything. He can do foreign policy, he can do domestic issues, and everything in between. Mm-hmm. But this academic mind that he has is why I think there is definitely some points of consternation. So let's go ahead and watch this clip here. This is Nick talking about why Dr. West got offended.
Plan to organize along class lines, or are you going to keep talking about white supremacy and all those identity politics, which are there not from the ground up, from the top down, to make sure we stay divided? What is your plan to organize along class lines?
See, where I disagree with the question from Jimmy is the premise, because I wouldn't even classify Dr. Cornel West as one of these people that just dive into liberal identity politics. So the question framing is kind of off. And that's why Dr. Cornel West kind of get offended later, because Dr. Cornel West is talking about work.
All right, leave it up, but just pause it. Yeah.
I hit the wrong button.
Huh?
I hit the wrong button. Go ahead.
That's ticky-tacky analysis over there. I love you, Nick, but that's bullshit right there. You know what I'm saying? You're just trying to you're misframing everything what's going on. Jimmy had a very clear point over there. When are you going to lead with the economic issues that tie us together? When are you going to speak that language? Because Dr. Cornel West has been speaking a lot about white supremacy. Dr. Cornel West has been talking about what was the other word he used? The male supremacy of sorts. He's been talking about all those ideologies that are small echo chamber leftists that, you know, really dive into them and lead with them. I'm sorry, Nick, here. Jimmy is not misrepresenting anything. He's asking an honest question. Ladies and gentlemen, remember this again. Cornel West is not running for the United States of progressive leadership. He is running for the United States of America as a president, right? He's running for the presidency over here. You have to meet the people where they're at. He's not doing that. And that's what Jimmy is asking him, plain and simple over here. So you can try to ticky-tack your way around this and say this was misleading, whatever. No, you're wrong. Jimmy's right here. When are you going to do it? Please continue.
Okay. I have a different takeaway from that.
All right.
Let's keep going.
He's talking about ending the war. He's against the war in Ukraine, brother. Jimmy, he's against the war in Ukraine. He's been speaking out against Cop City. So he is talking about class issue. He's not one of these liberals that lead with identity politics issues. So that's why Dr. Cornel West is going to get offended, because I think Jimmy 100% misclassified who Dr. Cornel West is right here.
Nope, he's not. Go ahead, buddy. Jayme,
well, I think the issue there.
So what?
Let me keep that up. I think the issue there is that is this is an academic issue, because what Jimmy is saying is that, and I've got another clip that kind of goes into this a little bit deeper, but is that white supremacy is an identity politics issue. And every person on that panel at RBN absolutely disagrees with that point. And I think that Cornel West also absolutely disagrees with that point, because later I'm going to show you where they start talking about this, that they do not see white supremacy as an identity politics issue. And they spent probably a good 20, 30 minutes explaining that to the audience during this live stream. Now, I'm not there with them on that point, but I'm listening to them and trying to understand it. And because I don't see how it's not an identity politics issue. But I do hear what they're saying when they start relating white supremacy to being a class issue and racism as a class issue, and they're combined together. But I don't see how that's not also identity politics. But the fact is, it's crystal clear to them that this is not that is not the case.
Okay,
they do not believe
let me jump in there.
That this is identity politics.
That once again, if you got to bring a dictionary to explain what something is going on, you already lost the people right away. And it's not the way they see it is what's important. It's the way the populace see it, right? You're running for president again. Once again, it's the way the majority of the people are going to see it. And if you say, oh, well, these things, class is connected to race, and yeah, that might be true, but that's not how people perceive these things, right? And there's always been a form of divisiveness put into these things, right? Where a lot of people have always said, white people are the oppressors, black people are the oppressed, right? Not the ruling class is the oppressor, and everybody's the oppressed, that, black people are just oppressed more than white people, you know what I'm saying? And talk about those differences. They frame it in a different way. So it doesn't make a difference on how they see it. And they want to say, well, technically this is not part of that. It is. No. It's the way the populace sees it. You're running for president of the United States. Your game and your pitch has to be towards the populist, because that's who's going to vote for you. And if you don't get that by now, then you need to get it. You know what I'm saying? Okay. And it doesn't. Once again, this is for me. This is these guys in a way providing cover for Cornel West because they like him and they're supporting him. And I'm not saying they're not going to be fair, because I got to give it up to Nick, and Nick especially, right? Nick is. Like,
I think they were very fair.
What's that?
They were very fair. I think they were very fair in this critique today.
I heard they were, but I saw some of the stuff they were saying and some of the tweets, and I disagreed with some of it and stuff. And Nick is, he's had me on his show. We've talked. I love these guys and stuff like that. But this seems to me of kind of like fudging the perception of what's going on, saying that Jimmy was kind of being a little disingenuous the way he framed this. No. He framed this 100% right. And this is the thing that they have to get. And this is the frustrating part about Cornel West. This is why I'm saying right now, he's not a serious candidate. And that is frustrating. And that's very disappointing.
Well, I do think Nick's point is correct when he says this is why Cornel West got offended. Because Cornel West believes that this is not an identity politics issue. And Jimmy Dore is framing it as such. That is a fundamental disagreement between Cornel West and Jimmy Dore. And Nick is correct when he says that's why Cornel West got offended. I don't think it matters.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
Populist believes. But that's what you're running for president for.
Yes.
And that's why a campaign should be advising him, right? About like, no, you're wrong, because we need these people to vote for. 80% of the people in the country are white, right?
You're thinking bigger picture here. You're thinking bigger picture here,
but you're running for president. If you're not, you have to think big picture. You're running for president.
Right.
These are the conversations you can have in closed doors when people are together having food, talking, or whatever. Once you've gotten them, you haven't gotten them yet, right?
And a lot of people feel like this whole interview should have been a closed door discussion.
Well, that's on Cornel West.
It is.
That's on West because Jimmy wanted him on a long time ago. They had to kind of keep knocking on the door until eventually he agreed to come on, and he only agrees to come on for 45 minutes, and he wants to leave early. If Cornel West was serious about running for fucking president, wanting to get some votes, he would understand the power of Jimmy's audience. You got 1.23 million people over there. Like I said, I've been handed this giant megaphone, right? Yeah. So Cornel West, when you get the megaphone handed to you, take advantage of it. And he is, what I saw was a guy who's purposely avoiding Jimmy Dore.
Right. And
good luck, my friend.
He kept him at a bit of arm's length here in this interview as well. All right. Well, you know what? Now that I think about it, I probably should have started this entire segment with this clip here. So this is the one talking about white supremacy and identity politics. Here we go.
Even our white allies, like Jimmy, I would say is not in the place when it comes to racial issues that we would like. So him classifying a discussion of white supremacy or the white power structure as identity politics is simply wrong.
Yeah.
That's not identity politics. So to your point, Nick and Sabby, both of you were making this point. This is one of the things where I was like, yeah, this is not this exchange here. I'm not so sure
white
Jimmy's right.
Supremacy. It's an identity.
Is put off. So I don't know if Jimmy is just using shorthand. You get what I'm saying? He's using shorthand, like instead of making a distinction. Okay, not talking about white supremacy is identity politics, but I'm just saying, you get what I'm saying? He's not saying that in a conversation. He's just kind of listing things, but it makes it seem that's what he's doing. So I would just like to get some more clarification.
And that's why.
So this is something I got from the stream, that they are adamant that white supremacy is not an identity politics issue. They think it's absolutely a class issue, and race is absolutely part of that discussion. Like I said, I'm listening to him. I'm really trying to understand it, but I don't see how. I just can't grasp how it's not identity politics.
Yeah.
And the thing about identity politics is that it's a really good way to drive people away from you so they won't listen to you. That's where I'm at.
Yeah. Well, because you're hitting on the nose, right? Like, and this is something that Jimmy said. This is something I can say. This is something you can say. Is we understand. I understand where you're coming from. I'm not denying a lot of what you're saying. I'm just saying it's an awful pitch for you as you're running for the presidency. That's what I'm saying. Low-informed voters is the majority of the voters out there, right? And once again, for those out there who keep on saying the system sucks, blah, 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 you don't care anyways, blah, 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 right? It's the movement, it's the discussions, it's the education that we're giving the people, right? And you have to get them aboard first. You have to meet them where they're at. You got to bring them along. I keep saying this and repeating this because
I guess it's got to hammer that point.
Nobody's fucking listening to this whole situation. They want to try to make excuses for this shit. And this is like a lazy, failed campaign over here right now. It's a losing battle. It's a muddled voice. It's not clear. You know what I'm saying? And it's, and I'm so sorry right here. Like, and then when CJ trying to say that stuff, first of all, white is an identity, right? White supremacy. I mean, I guess I know there's more to it. And if you want to have those discussions, we can have those discussions right now too as well, right? Because unfortunately, you're saying white supremacy, but not all white people are supremacists. Most white people are poor and have no power. That's just the truth of it. So when you use the term white supremacy, it gives a different message, even though it means something different.
But poor white people are beneficiaries of white supremacy. There's things that poor white people don't have to go through that black people do, that even rich black people
do. Yes, but once again, there's still poor white people living on the streets. There's poor white people who can't afford to pay their bills. There's poor white people who can't do everything. We shouldn't be arguing over what the oligarchs are feeding us, over the scraps we're fighting over. We should stop and identify that these are the ones who are causing all those fucking problems. We get in a room, we take care of them, and then we come back out and we find out what's best for all of us. But first things first, the corruption and the leaders and the people who are running this joint, they got to go. And that's the only way this is going to work. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, the thing I take from their critique here is that this idea that white supremacy is not identity politics is a big sticking point. And it's a divisive issue. And I'd like to get down to the bottom of it and really understand. I want to understand more about it. Why do they feel that way? Because I'm not getting it. I'm probably because I'm white. But it's every single one of them absolutely agrees with that point.
Yeah.
And it's I think it does cause some conflict between different people like us and them who want to work together. And I know at the end of the day, it's just kind of a remedial misunderstanding, or it's an academic issue, but there's a lot of passion behind this point, and I don't want it to be something that stands in the way of us being able to unite on issues.
Well,
So
we're not going to be able to unite if they lead with these things, Jayme. You know what I'm saying? Once again, with the Poor People's Campaign, when Reverend Annie Chambers, she even worked with the fucking Ku Klux Klan at one point, right? She said she went over and worked with the Ku Klux Klan to shut down the streets in Nevada and Vegas, and said put it on the governor's tab. They worked together because they had a common goal. People who hate each other, right? You know what I'm saying? And that's the whole thing. You think they led with that? And Reverend Annie Chambers said on my show, she goes, "We were poor, but these people were poor." She's like, they were throwing down a bucket in a stream. There are more poor white people in this country than any class out there. Okay,
I get it. More white people,
exactly. But once again, it's still a suffering of a group of people. You know what I'm saying? And that's the mindset we have to have. I use that per capita a lot. You know what I'm saying? Obviously, and the most ridiculous thing is the way they jail black people in this country. They're only like 15 to 20% of the population, but they're like almost half the population of jail.
Like over 40%.
It's
like
ridiculous.
That.
That's ridiculous. And that you can't argue with those statistics. But at the end,
and we can thank Joe Biden for that.
Oh yeah. And at the end of the day, but at the end of the day, what I'm trying to say is that there's too many poor people in general right now.
Yes,
it doesn't have to be that way. There doesn't have to be just as many poor whites as there are poor blacks or anything like that. There could be no poor people. We have enough in this joint to fucking take care of us all. But who's holding us back? The oligarchs. Once again, there's the oligarchs and the rest of us. Get it through your fucking head. We got to fight them first.
Yeah. Well, it's important to me to try to understand this point. And I guess that's why I'm kind of focused on it. Because they spent a long time discussing it. And I'm sitting there watching it and trying to understand it. But maybe I never will be able to understand it.
Yeah.
But I'm really trying. I'm really trying. And I don't want there to be a divide there, because I want to be able to work with everybody.
It's okay for us, and it's good for us to try to have these conversations. I like to have a conversation with RBN about what white supremacy is, because Cornel West is not talking about what white supremacy is. He's saying don't elect the white supremacists. That's his message. That's it. You know what I'm saying? So you want to talk about it? Good. Let's go have a conversation with RBN. Let's bring Niko House in there. Let's bring a lot of people. Let's understand what white supremacy is. I get it. But once again, you're running for the president, and the message is not good.
I get that point too.
That is the problem.
All right. Well, I have a follow-up from Sabby here. She tries to explain why she thinks that this divide is the way that it is. I'm not sure if that's queued up, so I'll bring it up again.
Tell us in our own spaces not to talk about the things that we go through as a community,
because it makes them feel uncomfortable. And again, we have to go back to that message. And again, it's like, I'm sorry if you're uncomfortable, that's on you. But if we can sit through listening about your woes and your concerns, you can either sit through listening about our woes and our concerns, or you don't have to. But at the end of the day, like that's ridiculous. To me, what I hear is, let's not join us with all these other issues, but don't mention that you're black. Don't talk about the black stuff. Don't bring that over here. Let's not do. I thought the left was supposed to be for, some type of racial solidarity. Original left, not even just this Bernie Sanders campaign left. I mean, the original left was supposed to be for some type of racial solidarity and understanding the struggles that people that are marginalized go through, not just in this country, but all countries. But it seems like it's very clear to me that somewhere along the way, the idea of populism coming in, and yes, there are certain positions that we agree with in reference to populism, but that does not mean that we cannot talk about being Black and we have to suppress those issues so that you feel comfortable. That is a big problem. And people have to get that through their heads, because I'll tell you right now, I'm not going to compromise who I am or the Black community, my people, so that you feel comfortable. Because when we're in uncomfortable positions, I look around and I don't see some of the same allies on our side when we're going through things.
So I agree with a lot of what she said there.
No.
But I do.
Go ahead, please.
I just think we should not ignore the things that they're saying. And
Nobody's saying we're ignoring it, though. Who's saying that? Who's
Well,
ignoring it?
They feel like we are. Well,
That's
maybe
their
not we,
that's
us,
their
but-
that's their fault. That's their feelings. Okay. Here's the thing. I remember when my friend William Moses Somerville was running for office over here in Orange County, and we were having a conversation about what was going on. And he was saying that I think it was about the running in the Democratic Party. And I was like, why are you doing that and stuff? Or, you should get out of there, run as an independent and stuff. He goes, yeah, but there's a lot of Black Democrats in my district and I can't leave my people. And I was like, look at me. I'm your people too. That's what it's about. We have to go with our commonalities if we are going to try to run for president. Where are we the same? Once again, Sabby is leading with that stuff, just like Dr. Cornel West is leading.
I don't know if she's leading
talking
with
about our differences. We need to talk about the things that bring us together. She was wrong. She was way wrong.
I can't.
I don't ignore those issues. And who's saying we're ignoring those issues?
I don't know what she's
She is
talking about,
saying,
like
though,
us.
Jayme, really quick.
But there are people who do that. I've seen.
But
I
there
know
are,
people.
but you
I've
can't
seen
staple
it.
that on everybody. You have to staple that on the individuals. That's just not the majority.
That's true.
And you're leading with that. You're saying unless you
I
recognize
don't
this oppression first,
I
then
feel like it might be the majority. I feel like it might be the majority of white people act the way that she's talking about. I'm not saying that we're doing that, but I mean, I've been around white people my whole life. I mean, what she's saying resonates with me. I've seen it.
Yes.
So it's like I don't think she's wrong, but like I do agree with you. But the big picture here, we can't lead with those issues, but that doesn't say we can't talk about them. And we shouldn't try to understand where they're coming from.
Yeah, and here's the thing: who cares about? Somebody just made a comment over there and whatnot. Like, let me just say this much too, as well. If 20% of the Black voters are going to vote for Donald Trump, then they obviously don't feel the same way that you do. They think that their issue is a little bit different than you, and they share the same color skin. And that's something that people aren't realizing. I've been around enough to know that a lot of Black people don't think the same way, right? They have different thoughts. They're individuals. They have, you know what I'm saying? So there's a lot of Black people out there who will say, don't say Black issues. I'm Black, and I don't agree with you one bit, Sabby.
That's true. That's
you know what I'm saying? And that's something that's being forgotten over there. Poor people issues. Everybody's poor. If we take care of all poor people, we take care of Black people too. We take care of white people. That's the common denominator. Everybody's suffering here. Everybody's starving. You're gonna tell a white person who's homeless on the streets that he's privileged because he's white?
Well, they do make that point too, in the reverse sense, where a lot of the reasons we don't have things that a lot of white people would benefit from is because the people in government don't want Black people to have that. So by stopping Black people from having these things is hurting white people too. Nobody gets it because they don't want Black people to have it. And that's coming from the top down. And that was another point they did make. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to get that clip, but it was a very good point from Savvy. So,
well, I mean, the thing is that I'm not getting defensive over here. It's not frustrating me about the conversation about race and whatnot, and that's ridiculous.
Yeah,
okay?
I get it. You're frustrated that it's
about the whole presidential campaign. It's
in the context of a presidential campaign. This is not where we should be talking about.
And I don't care what you
issues
say
front and
out there
center.
too as well. I'm not going to even mention who said that shit in the chat, dude. Fine, whatever, dude. I'm a white boy who goes over and fucking looks at elections in Latin America and comes back and tells their stories. So, please, once again, actions speak louder than words.
Yeah,
I'm very
understand.
happy. I walk my walk, and I'm very proud of what I do and how I do it.
Yeah.
So if you have these things, you know what I'm saying? I don't, and that's why, there was a black person who told me don't ever use POC because person of color is, there's black isn't a, there's a brown person, there's a black person, there's an Asian person. Don't use people of color. You call me a black man. That's what I am. And I was like, okay. So, you know what I'm saying? The person who just used POC in the thing, there's a black person who would be offended by that I've met before. So once again, stop with this group think that everybody thinks just in one way. Nobody's denying these things, especially the old school leftists. I'm not denying that white people have privileges over black people. They certainly do. All I say is that those privileges have been put in to keep us divided. And everyone, all of us, even the white people in this country deserve a lot more. There's a lot of white people who are out on their ass and don't have any hope in what's going on right now. You know what I'm saying? And get it. I get it, like what you're saying. But right now, it's the oligarchs, the elites. They're running wild and they're going crazy. And they're going to put us, right in the midst of another world war over here. And that is going to be bad. We have to stop this shit.
Yeah, I'm kind of in two camps here. I definitely agree with you, looking at the big picture of how this campaign needs to be run. But at the same time, I want to be better understand our allies, and maybe you've been in this space a lot longer than I have, right? I've only been in it maybe 6-7 years. You've been in it like probably 20. So
no, just a little bit longer than that.
Oh, really? Well,
I mean,
okay.
yeah, I've been always involved in politics, but I didn't get involved hardcore things. I've always watched Bill Maher, and I was always kept my head a little bit in the space, but I didn't go into what I'm doing right now and go hardcore with it until about 7 years ago. Bernie Sanders.
Okay. Well, I'm really trying. It's important to me when I listen to them because I'm really trying to understand and relearn about like the way I view our society. And I know RBN has taught me a hell of a lot. I've been watching them since they were very small channel as the Fred Hampton leftists. So I really appreciate what they're doing here. And when I'm watching them today, I'm trying to listen and learn from them. And I thought these were very important things that I pulled out because these are points of contention. And I would like to be able to see if there's a way we can resolve that and move forward. And because I don't want these walls to be there between us, and I don't think they do either. But they have every right to feel the way they do and have a chip on the shoulder because I know they have faced a lot more hardships I have in my life simply because of the color of their skin, and I'll never be able to relate to that. So
I'd like to ask some people out there too as well. There's somebody in this chat. I don't want to get. I'll do it. When I have another show with RBN, I'll ask those questions because I don't want to start chit chatting right now with the chat. We got to start with this. It's 2
There's 2 clips left. 2 clips left, and then we'll get out of here. And we're moving on from white supremacy. We're done with that. I think we beat that horse to death, and I hope this sparks some more good conversations that aren't related to a political campaign. So let's go ahead. And this is, I can't remember if this is CJ or Nick.
I can say this, and I think there's a reason why Jayme put 2 of my tweets up, and he kind of asking why are you not like them? Because when you listen to John Baraka, when you look to Glenn Ford, when you listen to Mark Kimberly, and countless others, they all have to take that Joe Biden Democratic Party is the biggest enabler faction that is no better or worse than the Republican Party. So you have all these black radicals, not only RBN. I know you guys think we're rowdy. But there's way smarter people, way more intellectual people that make that same exact argument. So our question is Dr. Cornel West, we're trying to get you caught up to Margaret Kimberly. We're trying to get you caught up to Glenn Ford. So the part of the interview where Dr. Cornel West pretend that Jimmy Dore was some sort of Trump sympathizer and Trump supporter, that's absolutely not the case.
So that was talking about Cornel West, and where he doesn't see the Democrats as fascist as Trump. We've talked about that earlier, but I just really like the way Nick put that, where he said Dr. West we trying to get you brought up to speed with with Margaret Kimberly, because he's not even there. He's still in that, you know, Republicans bad, Democrats good mindset, and that's where we got to break him free of that. And then finally, let's close this out with Rome. He's spitting fire here and just telling you what the strategy should be in Rome's unique way, and I really like the way he does this.
And says Cornel needs to speak to all people, including Trump supporters, and quit demonizing Trump if he wants to get elected. Thank you very much for that.
Again, I wouldn't even focus on either one of them. I wouldn't even focus on Biden or Trump. I just focus on myself and my campaign.
Yeah,
stop demonizing the voters. Fuck the president, the ex-president. Fuck them. Talk shit about them. You know, show people that you are farther left, that you are willing to deliver all those promises that Biden had. There's no difference between them, really. But that Trump had promised in 2016. He promised us universal health care. He promised that the NAFTA deal wouldn't affect Michigan and the Midwest as much as it did. He promised us jobs and corporate, you know. All right, then. That's what he should focus on. Don't demonize the voters, but demonize the man that has led them astray. So you can talk shit about Trump, but let the people know that they have been led astray. And that's how you win.
So how about that? I think Rome really said it right. Everything we needed to hear right there.
Kind of, yeah. Well, I mean, it was weird because they're like the vote. Those are those people. They're still Trump voters or Biden supporters or the people who are going to vote. I think they would. I felt that they kind of framed that discussion wrong, whatnot, because what Rome is saying is you don't have to concentrate on. You could say that you don't have to concentrate on them personally. You concentrate on what you're going to do. You know what I'm saying? Right. That's what your campaign, and that's where Sabby did kind of finish up in the right way over there when she said, you know, I think you should talk about your campaign, but your campaign has to be, what am I going to do for you that they haven't done for you? That's what your campaign needs to be about. And that campaign is not about that.
Well, I think he was right when he said
of black oppression, beating down the white supremacy. You know what I'm saying? It's all about the neoliberal progressive bullshit stuff that they've been talking about for quite some time that I'm not saying are not important. It's just going to push people away. You know what I'm saying? Right now, there are pressing, dire needs in this country right now, and those need to be addressed. And
right. Well, I think that point he made where he said, point out how these other guys have led you astray is a very strong way to run the campaign. And he said, I think he said it perfectly right there. So I was clapping when I heard him say that on the live stream. It was awesome.